den schönen Brunnen im Sommer. Welcome to the Seabird vlog. You know what is the biggest problem in this world? The biggest problem is last year the world has spent $13 trillion on war. 1 trillion is 1,000 billions and 1 billion is 1,000 millions. So a lot of money actually. And we had this really interesting discussion on Facebook because I said, if you spend $13 trillion on destroying something, that can't be good for the economy. It is not good for the economy. Because, and that's the broken window fallacy. I can link it in the description below, like a little propaganda video, but it explains very good the broken window fallacy, which states that you have to see and take a look at the things you actually are not seeing. Because so many people say, okay, war is good because afterwards you have to rebuild everything, so that's good for the economy. But what you don't see is, if you would have spent those 13 trillions in building something up anyway, we would have had the destroyed things plus the things we would have built for the 13 trillion. You know, when I've been to university, I wrote a paper where I wanted to find out if destruction, like a war or like a disaster, could be good for the economy. And it's really difficult to find out because what we are measuring normally is the GDP. The GDP is the value of all the goods and services produced in one country in 1 year, normally. And what I found out, I compared like Japan and looked at the numbers of Japan after the tsunami. If the GDP would have gone down or if there was less growth than expected. And the interesting outcome of my paper was that actually there is no evidence that disasters or wars had negative effects on the GDP growth. Interesting, you would say, But the thing is, and that's sort of also the broken window fallacy, and that's something which we can link to the things I've spoken about in the last 2 vlogs, that it's difficult to compare the past with the present. We never know, and we're never gonna know, what would have happened if this tsunami never happened. So we don't know if there are negative effects on the GDP. Maybe the GDP would have been even higher. So that's the first outcome, that's the first point. We cannot look at those things which would have happened if the war or the natural disaster didn't happen. The second point was the measurement of the GDP, because what the GDP actually measures is growth. What it doesn't measure is the loss of capital, the loss of houses, the loss of production sites and so on. So this is something that GDP actually doesn't measure. It only measures like flows. It measures how much money flew through the economy and not how much value was like there and stayed there. That's why GDP growth alone is not a sufficient number for this, obviously, because when you look at, I don't know, poor countries, they have very high GDP growth, so you would say, wow, that's good, but still they are really poor. So that's again the second point. You always have to look at the numbers and see what do these numbers really measure, and can you really use those numbers for your question you are asking? So my conclusion on this is still, war is not good for the economy, because destroying something cannot be good for anybody. Of course, the loss of lives and the tragedy and the destruction of whole societies, it's a disaster I don't even want to talk about. But also economically speaking, war is a disaster. Destroying something is not good for the economy. Cannot be. So, Schönbrunn, nice place, huh? Good for vlogging actually. So, and now I'm on my way to Baden near Vienna to meet a special friend.
Hallo, ich bin der Fitz.
Radrennbahn Baden.
Techno Open Air.
Bitte.
Hallo Vorstetten, wir gehen jetzt zum Großhorigen. Hey!
Hallo Vorstetten. Ausgesteckt ist. Spare Ribs, Grillplatte für 2. Veggie Burger. Bob Spray. Bob Spray.
Welches Kind hat sowas gehabt? Den Mund voll sprayen.
Das schmeckt so grauslich.